This tutorial will show you how to sew the Created for Crisis 3-layer mask. You will need the pattern to follow along with this tutorial, which can be downloaded at masksnow.org. The pattern packet provides a lot of information, so please read through it carefully as this video will only cover pattern and assembly. These homemade face masks are not surgical masks or filtering facepiece respirators. These face masks have not been tested for fluid resistance, particulate, or bacteria filtration efficiency, differential pressure, or flammability. These homemade face masks have not been evaluated by the FDA. These face masks have no certifications from any regulatory agency. For supplies, you'll need a cotton print and a lightweight non-woven fabric. I'm using sew-in interfacing. Don't use fusible interfacing. You'll also need all-purpose thread. As an alternative, if you don't have print fabric, you can use 2 different solid cottons. Regardless if you're using a print or you're using a solid color, it still needs to be pre-treated, so make sure you wash and dry before you cut anything out. If you don't want to take the time to make your own ties, meaning folding them, you can also use extra wide double folded bias tape. If you're confused on the materials to be used in this project, check out the material guide in the Masks Now packet. Tools needed are a sewing machine, iron and ironing board, scissors, straight pins, fabric chalk or fabric marker, just something to mark your fabric, and the pleat template that you can get from your packet. Cut out the pattern pieces found in the packet. Tape the patterns together to end up with a mask pattern and a tie pattern. Mask A goes with mask B. Just going to put them together at the red dashed line. You're not overlapping, and you're going to do the same thing, one tie end to the other tie end, and you're going to tape them. From your tie pattern, cut 4 from your fabric. If you have bias tape and you don't want to make your own ties, you can cut 4 pieces from the bias tape that are 20 inches in length. If you do this method, then you don't have to do this one. If you're using a print fabric from your mask pattern, you're going to cut 2 from the print and 1 from the non-woven. If you're using solid colored fabric from the mask pattern, cut 1 from each color and 1 from the non-woven. It's important that the mask wearer knows the front of the mask and the side that goes to the face. This is why solid colors need to use 2 different colors. For prints, we'll use the wrong side of the fabric to make this distinction. On the mask pattern, you'll notice 4 tie marks. This needs to be transferred to the right side of your fabric using fabric marker or chalk. For all 4 tie pieces, you're going to lay them out wrong side facing up on one short end, fold over from the right side to the wrong side about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters. Then you're going to take one long end and bring it to meet the other long end, making sure that you keep your fold here. And you're going to do this for the whole length. Press it with your iron in order to create a crease up here. After pressing, if I were to open this up, you'll see a crease right in the center. Take the raw edge of each long side and bring it to meet at that crease. It'll look something like this. Now, if I was to refold it again on the crease, you'll end up with something that looks like double folded bias tape. Now, it's a little long, so you might want to put pins just to hold it as you go for the whole length, and make sure this folded edge is still tucked under nice and neat. Once you have this all pinned up, you can go ahead and press it again. We now want to stitch our tie closed. So this is the folded side and I have the open side. The side that has the fold tucked under, which is this end right here, you're going to sew along the edge down and then pivot across and sew along the edge all the way down the whole length of the thing. You don't have to sew across this part because this is going to stay a raw edge here. If you're using bias tape, you can see it looks similar here. I have my open side and my folded side. You're just going to stitch along the edge of the open side to close it. I'm going to do the short side first. I'll make sure to back stitch before I start and then back stitch when I finish my stitch. So I'll go along the edge, and then once I get close to the end, it's not very big, so you might want to do the hand wheel for that part. I'll put my needle down, lift my foot, and rotate. And then continue sewing, going along the long edge. Again, when you get to the end, don't forget to back stitch. Take one of your mask fabric pieces, place it right side up. The non-woven is going to go on top since they're the same dimension. They should match exactly. Remember, this needs to be right side up. If you're using the solid color, you don't need to worry about it, but you do need to worry about it if you're using a print. Then you're just going to throw a couple pins just to hold it so we can take it to our sewing machine. Do a basting stitch all the way around. This means that you're going to do the longest stitch on your machine and you don't have to do any back stitching. Take your other fabric piece, the one that doesn't have any non-woven on it, place it right side up. Make sure the top of the mask is at the top if you're unsure of what that is, because it's not a perfect square. Just lay your pattern on top. And so the top of the pattern is the top of the fabric. We're going to be attaching our ties to the 4 tie points. The unfinished or unfolded raw edge side of the tie is going to go at the mark. You want to line up the center of the tie with your mark. I place that right there. I'm going to pin it, and I would do that for all 4 of them. Baste all 4 ties into place. Take the loose ends of your ties and put them in the center so they're away from the edges. Then you'll take your other piece that has the non-woven and you're going to place it on top of this. Now this is right side up. This is non-woven side up. Make sure you match all the sides so they're the same length, and then pin all the way around. You'll notice at the bottom of my mask I have 2 sets of X pins. This is to remember to leave a gap so we could turn it right side out when we finish sewing it. This gap is about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. You want at least that, if not a little bit more. I would start sewing here at my first X, go all the way around, and then stop at the second. Do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is about 6 millimeters. And don't forget to back stitch at your X points because we really want to make sure that your stitches are not going to come out. Trim off the corners, being careful not to cut into your seam stitches or else you'll end up with a hole. If you cut into your basting stitches, that's fine, but just be careful you don't cut those other stitches. Turn it right side out through the opening. Give your mask a good press. Where you had your opening, you'll want to tuck in the raw edges. You can see right here, I tuck them in and then I press them. This is so the side lies a little bit more flush. Sew around the whole mask, close to the edge, including over the opening. Lay your mask so the straps are going out to the side and you're looking at the front of the mask. That means I'm looking at the right side of the fabric. On this side, it's the wrong side of the fabric. Place your template in the center. You want to make sure the top of it is lined up at the top. It's okay if it doesn't completely line up at the bottom. The top is the important part. And it's in the center so we can see fabric on both sides. Then with your fabric chalk or marker, you're going to mark the lines on both sides. So I got it on this side and I have it on this side as well. If you also want to draw the arrows, you can do that if it helps you visualize the next part. Now I'm meeting the line that's above the arrow with the line that's below the arrow. We'll take the first line, I'll pinch it so the line ends up between my fingers and bring it down to the second line right underneath it. So I just fold it over and then I'm going to pin on each side. So this side and then this side. Now if it's easier for you, you can do one side at a time. So I can take this, bring it to this, pin it, and then do it over on this side. You don't have to do it at the same time. Take the next line and bring it down to the line below that. So I'm pinching between my fingers, folding down to the line and pinning it. You'll notice all my pleats are going down the front of the mask. This is what it looks like from the side. Pinching my line, bring it to the line below. After you do your third final pleat and pin it, you'll want to give the whole mask a good press. Just be careful not to press over your straight pins. Next, you want to do a final edge stitch around the whole mask to secure the pleats on the side. This is the most difficult part in creating this mask, only because some machines have a little trouble getting through the bulk of the pleats on the sides. Here's a few tips to help with that. The first one, the most important one, is doing a good press. If we flatten this as much as we can, it being flat is going to make it easier to sew. Another thing you can do is lengthen your stitch length on your sewing machine. So maybe instead of a 2, I'm doing a 3. When you get to the hard parts, you can also use your hand wheel to slowly stitch manually over the difficult parts. Another thing you can do is use a walking foot. If you have a walking foot, you probably want to utilize it at this point because it'll definitely help you get over the sides. Another option is sewing your pleats in sections. So my first side is going to be this side, and I'm sewing with the pleats going down instead of trying to fight them by going up the pleats. So I'll start here, sew my pleats down the side, and then down the bottom, take it out of my machine, cut my thread, and then this time I sew along the top, rotate it, and then sew in this direction. So I'm always sewing with the pleats going down. If your machine gives you a hard time and won't let you stitch on the original edge stitch, go ahead and do it 1/4 inch away from the edge, or 6 millimeters, and that should make it a little bit easier. If you used bias tape for your ties, you still have a raw edge on the ends. To finish, you can just fold it over a little bit and then do a zigzag stitch across, or fold it over twice and do a straight stitch across to hold it. Our mask is now complete. I'm looking at the back with the top up here, and you can see my pleats are going up. Flip this back over to the front of the mask, same direction. Pleats are going down. For further instructions regarding completing mask, please refer to the packet. To download the packet or volunteer to make masks, go to masksnow.org. We'll put the link in the description.